Hello there, and welcome back to Celtic World Order podcast. And as you can see by games, it wasn't the best of performances. Stevie's tap in his heart there, that tells you exactly what he thinks of the game.
Yeah.
Let us know what you thought of it. End of the day, the result is all that matters for us. And we got that. Yep, Stevie?
Exactly that. I'm absolutely over the moon that we are in the semi-finals. If you're going to break it down and ask, how did we actually manage to get there?
Can you hear me?
That's going to be the difficult question to answer because so many things just, even before the game kicked off, we're looking at, late injuries to... I can't now. You're a wee bit echoey, but I can hear you now. But yeah, definitely, as I say, two unexpected injuries going in, the lineups, the game itself we'll talk about in depth. But at the end of the day, we move forward the round and Rangers don't. It doesn't get much better than that. I think Paddy's having a wee bit of streaming problems there. You're muted again. But yeah, it's one of these things. Right, how are we? Calling Paddy.
Yes, that's me. I think that's me now. I don't know what the fuck was going on there, guys. I apologise profusely.
You're
obviously Stevie.
Your internet is exactly the same as my blood pressure. I think it just needs a wee bit of time to calm itself down, man.
Yeah. So while we do that, then what I'm going to do, Steve, I'm going to bring in the team lineup. When it first came out, there was a lot of shocks in there. So let's have a little look at that as it pops up on the screen, right? So you have a wee look here, right? Sinisalo in goals. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen because Casper is still sick. We've got Araujo in there, always going to start. Arthur, I was quite surprised that he got his place in there. Trusty, Scales, was very surprised that Scales was playing on the left, but obviously Kieran's out due to an injury. Hatate, McCown, Negrin, Yang, Tenetke, and Maeda. Now, straight off the mark, mate, looking at it, the defence for me, I was quite worried. And a few of the boys in the chat were as well. I've seen a few people put in there like, that's suicide going into a game like this with a defence like that. The young boy Arthur being thrown right into the deep end. And obviously Scales being thrown into the left back as the captain. So looking at that straight away, what were your thoughts? What were you thinking looking at that straight off?
I was very surprised that he didn't just knowing that Kieran wasn't making the game. I would have, but shows you how much I know. I would have gone for Sarachi in there just as a more like for like swap, knowing that the lad is it Skov Olsen. He created a lot in the game a week ago. So I was very surprised that Liam got the nod at left back. I thought defensively, yes, but attacking wise, he's certainly not going to be more of a threat than either Kieran or Marcello. So I have to say, I was a bit surprised in there. The lad Arthur, yes, not very minutes under his belt, but I thought he did okay when he played in his last game. So, if you're going to bring these boys in, bearing in mind, is it Bournemouth or Brentford he came from? If they rate him, then he must have something in there.
Yeah, listen, enjoying Araujo. We've spoken about him before. Obviously, Barcelona, I think, paid something like 20 million for him, and then due to financial fair play or whatever it was, weren't allowed to play him. So they had to offload him, and I think they offloaded him to Bournemouth for about 10 million. Now, listen, if you say to me right now you can get him for 10 million, I would tell you to throw the book at him, because I think the guy is absolutely brilliant. The shithousery that he causes, the absolute carnage, and he can defend, and he can score goals. He's positive going forward. Him and Raskin, mate, honestly, there's that wee bite, and you need that because we've missed it for so many players. And I don't want to use this to a jump on point to certain players and stuff. But if you look at guys like Benji Negrin, he scores so many goals. But I tell you what, in the middle of that park without Callum McGregor, Benji Negrin was a shite bag. He backed out of every single tackle. I just thought he looked like a passenger most of the time, and he just gave you nothing throughout that game, and it really, really frustrated me. So we'll have a wee chat then. Obviously, when you think about going into the midfield, right? Luke McCowan, Rio Hatate, and Benji Negrin. What's your thoughts there? Did you question where they were going to start? Did you question like who was going to be the holding midfielder, who was going to be the pressing?
Well, yes, because I think regardless, we'll have the conversation about Cal Mack firstly. We know that he's not had a sterling season, probably because of the people playing around him rather than his own form. But today was another example of just how pivotal he is to our total style of play. If he'd been on that part today, there was no way that we would be getting penned in for as long as we were. You know, the number of passes that we were putting astray because players are that used to, you know, whether it's out wide, whether it's in the middle, any of our team get a ball, the first person they're looking for it's going to make himself available is McGregor. Absolutely. And without him there, you know, as I say, we've talked about, the Peter the Pointer, he's Peter Grant Mark II and this, that, and the next thing. But absolutely pivotal to our style of play. So, yeah, as you say, when I saw that lineup, I thought, who's going to, out of McCowan, Hatate, certainly not going to be Negrin, who's going to play that kind of deeper role between our back line and the midfield? That for me was a kind of question mark, and I don't really think anybody took that role. I know kind of Rio was, more there than not. Luke was there for bits and starts, but nobody really, nobody can do what Callum does, and that's where today he was the biggest miss, I think.
Yeah, I said that on here before, and I came on, and me and Steve were having a chat when Callum was out one of the times, and I'd said when he's missed, we lack that ambition, that desire to strive forward. He's one of these players that I believe can just grab a game by the scruff of the neck and get players back in there. He commands that respect and he commands that role in there. Just takes it under his wing. And you've seen at some points, mate, like even Rio, there's a few people in the chat there saying how outstanding Rio was today. But you kind of look at some of the players and they looked lost at some points when they got the ball. And we were just giving it away or hoofing it up the park. Or there was that severe lack of leadership. Liam Scales, listen, he played okay, he done well throughout the game, but for me as a captain, I think he offered nothing.
Yeah,
that makes sense. I look at that team and Luke McCowan, he's done it for Dundee, but he's not done it at this level. And for me, the whole team just lacked that leadership. It lacked that person that was willing to grab the game and drive it forward. So because that was a big thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, there were times in the game where we knew we were going to be under pressure. Obviously, Rangers, the home team, the home team advantage, with more fans than we had, they would have kind of been more up for the game generally than we would have been. And at that time, that's where sometimes the Callum effect of just calming people down round about him and say, listen, we're going to be 5 minutes of pressure, 10 minutes of pressure. Let's soak this up and let's, sometimes the football's not pretty, as we've seen. We've all raised our opinions on that over the course of the season. But again, winners are winners and you get results based on you do the basics well, and then on occasions where you've got the chance to do something a bit fancier, I thought there was very, the two wingers that started the game, Yang and Tinekti, weren't in the game because they weren't getting the kind of service that they would have had if Callum was on the pitch. Dyson up front, again, the service into him was very, very poor because we're not building anything through that midfield. So, again, that's where Callum was missed today. The work rate from everybody in the midfield, I don't think you can doubt. It's more the quality.
Yeah. Listen, it wasn't one of the performances that was that's going to be remembered. It's not going to be a Glasgow Derby that we look back on and go, oh, remember that game? That was brilliant. It wasn't one of them. It was a great defensive performance. Yep. It really was. Midfield done okay, but I think we're probably dominated throughout the game.
Yeah.
And our attacking players were pretty much null and void. And you just need to look at the statistics for that. I think before we come on, we had a wee look at Stephen. You'd said that Celtic only had one shot, and I think that was after extra time. That was
one shot, and it wasn't even on target. Yeah.
That kind of tells you how the game went. For me, like I said, it was a defensive performance, and I want to talk about the defence. I want to talk about Vijay Sinisalo, because that young lad, for me, has now cemented his position in that squad until the end of the season. Even if Kasper Schmeichels isn't sick, that boy doesn't get dropped. I'll tell you that right now, because he commanded that box. He commanded outside his box. He just commanded everything that came at him, and I thought he was outstanding. Rangers had 12 corners. Now, that's not including set pieces that they had that they were able to whip the balls in and stuff. So you're probably talking 18, 19, maybe 20 balls into that box, into dangerous positions that Celtic always seem to concede goals from.
Yep.
He kept a clean sheet in that game with all of those chances against us. And I think, yes, a lot of it was down to Austin Trusty, had a decent game. And I thought, obviously, the big guy, Arthur, as well, had a decent game, throwing himself in there, getting involved. But for me, it comes down to young Vijay Sinisalo. What was your thoughts on him today, Stevie?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, the difference between what Kasper does in goals and what Sinisalo does in goals, entirely different. There was the effort early in the second half against Aberdeen, the Nisbet header that Sinisalo makes the save. That obviously we're sitting at 1-1 at that point. A lot of people would have said Kasper doesn't get to that. There was a lot of high balls into the box today that Sinisalo was either coming out, claiming in the air, or he was punching. Kasper doesn't do that, so therefore would have put us under a lot more pressure, than it would be. Sinisalo, for me, was our man of the match all day long. I especially liked his mind games in the penalty shootout. I thought that took a wee bit of confidence to do that, because as a goalkeeper, you're kind of setting yourself up. Jean-Paul there, absolutely. His handling was first class. His distribution was fine. I know, given who were missing out that team, there was probably a wee bit less of the trying to play it out from the back today. But sometimes that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I would rather we do that and clear our lines. There was nothing up top, so the ball was coming back pretty quick all the time. But rather than lose that in one of your own corners, and then you set up a chance for the opposition that way. So for me, Sinisalo's a kind of sticky in until the end of the season, unless he picks up an injury. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that one. Yeah, definitely, mate. Listen, I thought the young lad was outstanding. Arthur coming in, like I say, getting flung right into the deep end. Thought he dealt with the pressure really, really well. Yep. I also thought Austin Trusty, again, it was one of the performances. It was quite a gutsy performance. Yeah. Where he come back to the kind of Atalanta game where everything was getting flung in at him, everything was coming at him, and they just dealt with it.
absolutely perfectly. Yes, there was a few times that Rangers were the ball over the top, and they seemed to be a little bit quicker off the mark and whatever. But again, coming down to Sinisalo, I thought he was brilliant. Even Scales at left back done a job. You speak about guys that Rangers had on that left. Guys like Scott Volson, Danish international, very, very good player.
Yep.
Great delivery, as we've seen previously. Scales, he dealt with him. They were still getting the balls into the box, which really frustrates me. I'm wanting a kind of old school defender that's just going to go out there and just get himself in the way of it. You know what I mean?
You stop the cross rather than having to deal with it while it's in your penalty box. Definitely, yeah. But as you 100%. Say, that's something that kind of the modern game has kind of gone away from. Rather than stopping the crosses coming in. But yeah, I know what you're saying there.
Can we talk about the Dyson Maeda goal?
Yep.
The ball into the box. Obviously, Liam Scales headers it on. Dyson's there to get on the end of it. The angle that it showed you, mate, seemed to me a little bit dubious.
Yeah.
For me, you can see his foot slightly in front of the guy who's holding on to him. I can't remember who it was. I think it's Njiga. But the guy at the back post, I think it was Sterling, looks as if he's playing him on. But obviously, if you show it from the other angle, that for me was where it looked as if it was slightly dubious. Which what's on it?
Yeah, very, very similar to the kind of angles from Benji's goal against Aberdeen. So the first angle that they show you, as you say, the one that today where they're kind of looking. But now, bearing in mind, this was before any lines came up. I was very surprised that the thing was overturned and play continued, and I was like, right, where's the shot of this? Where's the lines? Where is it? And they didn't really show you anything until half time, which was very surprising. But yes, as you say, if you look at what I suppose might have been the television camera angle, you don't see an angle that's kind of dead on straight across the pitch like the way a linesman would look at it. It looked to me as if the way the camera was kind of looking almost not quite diagonally, but certainly not in line with play. So, as you say, Scales is coming out. He's got a guy who's behind him, but then you see a whole row of players, including Dyson. Because initially when they gave the offside, I thought the decision was against Dyson because he had his kind of head stuck out a tiny wee bit. But when you see that angle, and I'm thinking, no, that's not a side-on angle. I would quite like to see, here's where the players are. As you say, it looked as if the guy at the very back of the line, whoever that was, seemed to be playing everybody on. But, yes, they came up with two sets of lines, the same photo from the same angle, and that's the way it went. So disappointing. But VAR again, if you do one of the commenters the other night, I think, said this is what happens when you buy the Aldi version of VAR. You've not got enough cameras to show you these kind of proper angles. We've seen some that have gone against us. We've seen some that have gone for us. But yeah, it's pretty poor the way that decision went, I thought.
Yeah, that's vastly off of Timu. I think that's what the comment was. We went for the cheap version, and it's caught us out a few times, like you say, Stevie. I always think back to Jota's goal, another lad that was really, really missed. The ball came over the top, he took it under control and dinked over the keeper. Would have been probably goal of the season, and you chopped it off. But then when you seen it for the other angle, it was probably about a foot onside, and it was
that was a camera from about the halfway line that decided he was offside. And again, that was a very diagonal look at that one. So,
so. I want to come back a wee bit, and I want to get across about how good a result this actually is. When you think about it, yes, it was nothing each at Ibrox, with 2 each last week. Not been beat there. Fantastic. That'll be hurting them big time. what I look at our squad, mate, right? You've Vijali Sinisalo in goals, right? So he's not even your first goalkeeper, but he's had a fantastic performance, right? You've got Kasper Schmeichels out. You look again, and you've got Carter Vickers out.
Yeah.
You've got Kieran Tierney out. Callum McGregor out. Arnie Engels out. Jota out. Iheanacho out. Osmond out.
Yeah.
There's probably other ones in there that I've not mentioned, but that is the bones of a starting team for us, mate. That is that's a starting lineup.
That's a good spine, yeah.
Every one of those players would walk into that team right now. Do you think that's kind of where I'm sitting at it, mate? So that's what I'm trying to get at. This performance today, take nothing away from it. It might have been a nothing each result, but that's simply down to firepower. We're lacking the firepower up front. We're lacking an out-and-out finisher. Daisamida got the ball in the back of the net. Probably should have counted, yes. But I thought other than scoring the goal, it didn't really offer as much. No. Offered more on the left-hand side when he went there. And I thought, obviously, when James Forrest came on, he offered us that wee bit more going forward as well. Tenetke doesn't seem to want to take players on. Yang was doing the same. He would rather cut inside, but we got a bit more direct when we changed things. And I thought that should have happened a little bit earlier because we seemed to lack. We weren't getting dominated in the middle of the park. We weren't getting battered. At no point did I really feel like we were getting absolutely smashed because I felt like we were handling ourselves at the back and we were doing like a relatively decent job. But I just feel like there's so many players to come back and so much to come back into this squad that getting these games over the line is absolutely pivotal. This has made the semi-final with basically the shadow of a team that we've got sitting there. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think we've said so many times in more recent podcasts, we would absolutely take 9 1-0 games between now and the end of the season to win the league. Nobody's going to look over the course and say, such a miracle that St Martin has done. Again, may he be forever blessed, but he just seems to be able to dig out, this kind of momentum. He's got the ball rolling. He's keeping the ball rolling, as you say. The performances aren't great, bearing in mind the number of starters that he's had to do without in most of his time here. So you've got to say, it's going to come crashing down at some point. I hope. I thought that day was today, as I say, when I saw the lineup and then when I saw some of the substitutions that he was making, and I thought, this is going to be, if we lose this game today, then the kind of backlash is going to be on the manager and how he's got the the selection wrong or the substitutions wrong or whatever. But he just seems to keep going and going and going, and whether he's got a leprechaun inside that tracksuit as well, I don't know. I think it probably could be, because again, if you're asking me to explain how he's doing what he's doing with the squad that he's got available to him, I just can't do it. It's beyond me how we've put this run together, how we're still in a title race, how we're still now into the semi-finals of a cup competition, with who is left as well. Am I right in saying Dunfermline, Falkirk, and then St Mirren, Partick Thistle play tonight? So we're over what you would say is the hardest hurdles. Hearts are out of the competition. Rangers are now out of the competition. Motherwell are out of the competition. So, nothing. Take nothing for granted. We're not at that stage yet, but you're thinking there's now a wee bit more sunshine where previously there was rain.
Yeah. No, listen, absolutely 100%, mate. I totally agree. I remember coming on here, mate, and saying about the 4 away games coming up and saying, right, this is a massive part of our season. If we can get something from these 4 away games, yes, one of them is in the Europa League and one of them is a cup game, but if we can get these 4 over the line, do well in them, get decent performances, it'll push us on towards the end of the season. I'm going to cut back, I'm going to tell you about the 4 results, right? So obviously we went away to Stuttgart, beat them 1-0. Went away to Ibrox, drew 2 each. Went away to Aberdeen, 1-2-1. Might not have been the prettiest of games, but we won. And then there again, away to Ibrox, nothing each draw, winning penalties. Next game we've got, we're at home to Motherwell, then away to Dundee United, then away to Dundee, then at home to St Mirren, and then it goes into the split. Looking at the next 4 games, mate, other than the Motherwell game, that should be 9 points in there. The Motherwell game, I will give a little bit of grace to, because obviously the form that they've been on. Yes, they got beat the other night off of Dundee. They've slipped up, and I think that might kind of push them out of the title race as much as people would have said that they weren't in it. They weren't ever close. Let's face it, they were the up-and-coming team. They had the best defence in Europe at one point. I think last night's performance kind of puts them down in the rankings there. I think they're probably now about 3rd or 4th. But, yeah, they've been the on-fire team. So other than the Motherwell game coming up, I think that the other games should be ones that you look at and go, yeah, we've got enough firepower in there to take care of that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, the good thing is now that we've got the whole week to rest and recuperate. As you say, Motherwell are probably playing the best actual football in the league at the moment. So, not taking anything away from them. I don't know that they're kind of in a position where they could win the league now, but I think they will definitely chip points off potentially us, Rangers and Hearts, before the end of the season. I think they will still have a lot to kind of contribute. They definitely, as I say, they don't concede a lot, as you say. I think it was before last night's game, I think they'd only conceded 18 up to that point. Phenomenal for a team that, weren't huge spenders compared to some in the league over the kind of 2 transfer windows, but they just seem to be playing a very comfortable for them style of football. They've got some good players in there, not just Maswinishi that we keep talking about. There's the boy Elliot Watt, I think, that plays in the middle.
Saeed as well. Really good,
is it Just? The lad Just, I think, is very highly rated as well. So yes, as you say, I think what kind of put them on the back foot was, I think they started the season with quite a few draws, which kind of took them away from the pack a wee bit. They've been clawing away at that, and obviously moved up to 4th, quite rightly so. So yes, next Saturday's game, very important. We'll see who of Callum and Kieran, if they can shake off their niggles. We'll get some up-to-dates on whether AJ or maybe Arna might be, getting a bit closer to being back training and stuff. So yes, big game next weekend, Daniel, absolutely. Not the last big game that we'll have this season, I'm quite sure. And I'm glad it's at home rather than at Fir Park.
Yeah, no, listen, totally agree. Big Dom's put in there as well. Is he Iheanacho going to start for us again or going to play for us again? Iheanacho, I know Steve-O always comes on here, and Steve will tell you, Iheanacho is probably the most natural striker that we've got at Celtic at the minute. You can say what you want about Big Vanchara, Big Tam, whatever you want to call him. After him not getting on that chance near the end and not busting a gut to get in front of Butland to win that ball, that showed me that he's not got the desire that it takes to be a Celtic player. And I would be quite happy if I never seen him in a Celtic top again. I'm quite happy that he's only here on loan, because I don't want to see that lack of desire, that lack of passion. He's just, every time he backs into players, he hits the ground, folds all the time. Steve says he's like a big deck chair, doesn't he? That's all he is, mate. For me, offered nothing. Offered absolutely hee-haw. So I would be hoping that guys like Iheanacho come back in. I thought Big Adamu, when he came on the first game, the 2-each game, I thought he put himself about really well. I thought
got no service.
It looked good. If you can give him a bit of service, if you can give him the ball in there, you're going to see a hell of a lot more. Who would the man be for you? Are you on the Iheanacho camp that he's probably the best striker in there? Are you Dyson through the middle, or is it horses or courses, like we say? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's. I don't want to criticise any of them. I know there's room to criticise, as you say. Like in today's game, there was so many times where Kvanchara was dragged in deep to win a high ball in his own half, bearing in mind that there's nobody behind him to give him any kind of out ball after that. So he did a lot of running about the park. It was more of a defensive performance today, as we've mentioned. But yeah, as you say, that kind of slip late on, I know heavy legs and stuff like that, but you should really, it just kind of seemed one pace. He was, but Butland's not the fastest off his line compared to, Sinisalo at the other end. He came out really quickly for a kind of slip, and I thought he was really quick off his line. I think it was a misplaced pass by Scales, and he was out really quick to deal with that. But yeah, I've not seen enough of Iheanacho. You would think, given the level that he's played at, he should be. But again, like any striker, if you don't give him any service, that's not on the striker. You've got to say, if you get him a ball in front of him where he's facing the goal, either that he can run onto or he can get a shot away, and he doesn't get his shot on target, or he doesn't make the right decision, then that's on the striker. But as you say, the 2-2 game, Adamu looked lively, but there was just nothing for him to feed on. Nothing, no one-on-ones with Jack Butland, no chance to kind of run through and test the defender. And again, it was kind of like the same today with Kvanchara. As much as we've said, he didn't cover himself in glory, but again, there wasn't anything in, no high balls into the box for him to go and try and attack with his head. No kind of chance of him getting the ball in front of him. Everything he got was kind of behind him. So he was 9 times out of 10, he's back to goal anyway. And I thought there was times in the game where he was up the park, nobody was following up. And the same when like with Dyson, when Dyson was running about, he was pressing well, but there was such a gap between him and the midfield coming up. I think again, Dyson forced one of the Rangers defenders into a mistake, and he kind of played the ball across. And I thought, if somebody else is running in behind that, Chinecti probably at that point in time, if he's gambling and saying, "Oh, I think there's a chance if I push forward here, there might be a slip," but Chinecti's halfway down the park and was never going to get it. So I don't really have a preferred striker option at the minute. Is what I'm saying. I've not seen enough of any of them to say, "Oh, he's going to be our man that's going to keep us going between now and the end of the season." If Dyson's got the work rate, I think Dyson stays in there. But the problem being then is Chinecti's playing on the left, and I think Chinecti's kind of more an impact player off the bench rather than a full 90 minutes guy. So kind of horses for courses. But yeah, we're sadly lacking a kind of clinical striker. Big Dom says he's our most clinical striker with 3 goals in however many minutes he's played. So that kind of shows you where the barrel is and where we're underneath it.
Yeah, I get that, mate, and I kind of agree there as well with Dom. He probably is our most clinical striker. Plunge has been in there as well. I think Brown Murray was in there. We were saying about Big Tam having the balls to go up and take that penalty and put it away, and he done it with quite ease, and shows that he's got a wee bit, giving it that to the Rangers fans and stuff like that. And I like that. I like players to show that they've got that bit about them and whatever else. But see if you're going to do that shit, back it up.
got to do your talking. Well, look at the opposite. Okay, now over the course of the season, how many Rangers fans have you heard criticising Chermiti? Yeah, in 2 of the 3 games that he's played for us, the first game of the season, obviously the 0-0, that in my opinion was probably the worst game of professional football that I've ever seen. Today wasn't much better. I thought he was rank rotten today. If he'd had his shooting boots on today, he could have probably had another at least 2 or possibly 3 against us. So you look at it and then say, there's the problem that you've got. You've got a guy who can turn it on in big games, can score the important goals, but any striker has got to be consistent. And when they're not consistent, as we have with our front 3, that's where you're going to mix and match. You're not going to get a striker that's going to have a run of games to try and get that. And we had the same chat about Johnny Kenny as well. He got the run of games because there was basically nobody else after Osman's injury. But the run of games didn't do his confidence and his finishing any good either. So, yes, I think striker is probably going to be priority number 1 come the summer transfer window, I would suspect, along with many others. But striker definitely has to be the priority.
I think it does, mate. But then on the other hand as well, I get the point that you're putting across where you're saying about the delivery into the strikers. If you're not getting the chances and you're not putting them away, and you look at, I was talking about Matt Savanese, right? And we're saying Matt Savanese scored, say, 15 goals for Motherwell, right? And I go, if you bring him into Celtic, he'll score you 30 goals because he's going to get double the chances. And now I look at Motherwell's game the other night, even the one that they lost. Motherwell had 15, 16 chances in that game. Celtic have just played Rangers there and had no chances, mate. Well, no chances, right? Rangers had 6 shots off target, 6 shots on target, 59% of the possession, all of these kind of stats. You look at that, that's not surprising then that your striker hasn't actually scored. Mike Dom's put in the chat here again, he's saying, Vanchara, is he a target man? No. Is he a quality striker? No. What is he? He's an enigma, I think, is what we'll say. He's one of these guys. He came in and I think he scored a goal in his debut, didn't he? I thought, excellent. That's what we've been missing. A striker that's going to get himself in about, he's going to throw himself about. He looks a big lad. He's got a good turn of pace. And then you look at that game today, he was a passenger. Other than his penalty, I think he done absolutely nothing. I think he could have got on the end of the ball that got played through back to Butland. He's jogging towards it. If that's a Dyson Maida or even any Hianacho, they're getting on the end of that. And they're putting past Butland and that's a goal. You remember the old Samaras goal when he touches it past Alan McGregor and just puts it into the back of the net? That was one of my favourite goals that the big man scored. That's the actual picture I've got on his frame there as well. But it's something, mate. I'm all fine and well for a striker to get on the end of balls, but we need to be putting the balls into the striker as well. And I feel like that's something that we've severely lacked. Now, you say about Yang, Steve will put in the chat, the Yang gang's dead. He was garbage today. I totally agree. I think that every time he got the ball, it looked like he didn't want it. Tedeschi was scared of Dijon Sterling. I just thought he didn't want to go near him. Also, if you play a high ball into Sebastian Tedeschi, you'd be as well just punting it out of the park. Because he'll never win a ball in the air. As long as he's here. And that's wee things that we need to get sorted, mate. You're having these players on the wing and you're trying to play the balls out to the wing. We're never going to outdo Rangers in the middle of the park. When you look at their players, your Diamandis, your Raskans, these guys in there, they're going to fight. They've got that desire. They've got that wee bit of grit that we've been lacking for a wee while. Hatate was probably the only guy that showed that today. But you look at it and we need to get that bit back in there and we need to get those deliveries into the box. It's something that we keep lacking. Playing against teams like Hearts, mate, every time the ball went out wide to Claudio Braga or the other guy whose name is away from me, they were just pinging the balls into the box. Every time the ball went out, if it was an 18-yard line, it was just boom, straight into the box, boom, straight into the box, and they're attacking it. If you've got a big lad in there like Thomas Vankara or a big lad like your man Adamu, why are you not playing to that strength?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean? Yeah, that is the thing. And as I say, today I think that goes back to Calmac being missing, because he is the one who dictates. So even if it's not him that's playing the pass, he will tell you. He will say, he'll shout to a teammate. Whether it's Rio or whether it's Benji, he'll say, there's a wide ball on or there's not a wide. So again, it all comes down to our biggest miss today being the captain. And as I say, so pivotal to our performance, our total style of play. Even when he has his bad games, he can still talk others through it and stuff like that. Work-wise, Rio, absolutely. That was the kind of Rio performance that you needed from him today with Callum and Kieran being out. But again, if you're looking at it and saying, well, even his distribution, how many times did the ball go forward compared to last Sunday when he came on the park and almost every pass was forward? That's the thing.
Last Sunday changed the game. Totally come on and revitalised that team and made them push forward and get that desire and drive. Today, I think it helped keep possession. You had said before we come on, Stevie, and I want to get the people involved in the chat. Like, there's nearly 200 of you guys in the chat here, so let us know your thoughts. How many passes? What was the most amount of passes that Celtic actually strung together today? I don't think it'd have been over 10, mate. I really don't, because there was a lot of these lumping the balls up and a lot of just passing it about. If we did have 10 passes, it was probably between Sinisalo, Trusty, Araujo, back to Trusty, back to Scales. Do you know what I mean? It was probably there. There was nothing really in that middle of the park and that driving force, was there?
Yeah, I mean, in the original 90 minutes, there was times where, again, shouting at the screen, the telly, and saying, why can we not keep possession? We after about 3 or 4 passes, and then we're like, suddenly it's like the panic and saying, we've still got this. Who's the next pass? And that's where, as I say, sometimes we were just playing a pass and it went to an opposition player or it went out of play. We just couldn't get a grip on the ball and say, right, we're going to concentrate, 5 minutes possession, take the sting out of the game, get ourselves back into it, try and make a wee counter-attack. One good move where we passed the ball, that's possibly where we got that one shot that wasn't on target. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. As I say, if some statistician out there, put my teeth back in, can say, the actual longest run was 6 passes, 8 passes. I'd be surprised if it's any more than that before we turned over the ball. That was really disappointing for me today, and just as I say, in the 90 minutes, the extra time was just basically a defensive bubble. I don't think we got too much of the ball out of that either. So, but again, it is what it is. We got through the game, and that's it. We're in the hat for the next round. But the one thing, just before we move on to anything else, we talked about the impact of the subs, right? Tell me about Mvuka.
Well, Joe Mvuka, I thought he offered slightly more than what Yang did. I thought he looked a little better on the ball. I thought he showed a bit of desire to go forward. Wasn't scared to take on a defender as Taneke was. But I feel like he's one of these players that you've got to file under a Balaquisha or a Louis Palmer or that type of player. Insert shite winger here. Somebody had put in the chat earlier on, I don't know who it was, you can put in. I thought that lad was okay today. I won't hold him to it. And Michael agrees there, he did okay. He did okay, as did a few of the players. But I think he showed that little bit of desire in there. But like we were saying about these loan players coming in, he was one of the guys that we were willing to go out there and buy.
Yeah,
this one that
bearing in mind you were talking about paying what £3.5 million for him before his medical.
Yeah, so I mean that would have been you $5 million for Balikwisha and $3.5 million for him. That would have been the best part, $8.5 million. And we slated that Celtic board for spending $9 million on Adam Ida, who actually scored 20 goals in a season. I think if you played Balikwisha and Mvuka for 3 seasons, they'll not score you 20 goals. Because basically I don't really think they've got the Celtic standard. However, he did go forward with the ball. He did make a better impact than what we had previously. What was your thoughts?
My mama used to say, if you've not got anything good to say about anybody, then just don't say it.
You're going to be silent for him.
I think
silence for him. Is that what we'll do?
When I saw the starting lineup, when I was looking at the subs, and I says the only reason that he's got a place on the subs bench is because there's nobody else. Everybody else is either injured or sick or whatever. I didn't expect him to come on at all. I thought if Martin had to bring somebody on that left-hand side, he could have brought Sarachi on, to be fair. Sarachi's left-sided. He's going to do a defensive job for you, as well as, he kind of likes a wee run up the park. So I was very surprised when I saw him coming on at the time he came on. And yeah, I didn't think he impacted the game at all. That's as kind as I can be to a lad.
Yeah, fair play. I want to bring this comment in here. Where is it? Michael, I don't know what you've been on, mate, but listen, I thought there was a player in Balikwisha. We've seen him on his debut. He shot it against Rangers. He wouldn't take the ball near Tavernier. He wouldn't go past him. Looked like a duck out of water for me. Just a duck out of water, a fish out of water.
Yeah.
He looked like a fish out of water. Pardon the thing with there. But yeah, for me, mate, I don't agree that there's a player in there. We can say that with a lot of players. We can say that there's...
I mean, if you can tell us what you're basing that opinion on, we give our honest opinions here, and if that's your honest opinion, that's fine. But when we give our opinions, we say this is the reason why we're saying it. Now, if you think there's a player in Balikwisha, that's fine. But it's very telling that he's kind of now dropped out he can't even get a place on the subs bench. And what is that? Maybe 12 games, I think, since we last saw him. He's not settled. Players, that's fine. If it's because he's not settled, that's fine. But you should still see a wee bit of a spark of something that you can say, he's got pace, or he's got a good bit of control, or this, that, and the next thing. If that's the way you see it, totally fine with coming on. We like people's opinions. It's one of these things, as I say. I said, because the striking positions, I don't see us having any one of the players on there that I would certainly pick, because I haven't seen enough of them. They've possibly not settled, or they don't get service or whatever. But yeah, I don't see anything in Balikwisha that says he's going to be a kind of long-term either starter or bench warmer for our team at all. I think he's kind of he's going to be looking at a move come the summer, I would suspect.
Yeah, you would think so, mate. He's one of these guys. He's come in and he's not really done much. He's not really shown that he's got any kind of desire to be in that squad. I just thought that he's just not even close, in my opinion. This is a guy that we pursued for ages. We had to go out and convince his entourage to come to Celtic. Listen.
Yeah, well, just backing up on that again, if he'd made the squad today instead of Mvuka, then you could have possibly have seen that, you know, as being okay, you know, he's brought in because, but if he doesn't even make that squad and Mvuka gets on the bench, then that kind of tells you how far the kind of rankings of you know, those that see him in training every single day.
Yeah, that's it. We Ryan's in the chat there as well. He's saying he's not really been given a chance to prove himself. Listen, I hope he does get the chance. I really do. I hope he gets a chance to come in and prove himself that he's actually got it. We'll come on here and we'll give our opinions about Celtic players. I mean, I've slated Rio Hatate, who's one of my favourite players. I've come on here. He's been playing shit for the last wee while. He's actually come on to a good game now. But there's nobody wants these players to succeed more than us. So we come in here, guys, and like, you know us, we'll tell it like it is. We're unfiltered, we're uncensored. We just come on, and if somebody's shit, we'll say, no, wait a minute, he was shit. Do you know what I mean? So to that point, Ryan, listen, I totally agree.
We'll always give credit where it's due. I mean, you were the one that copyrighted the Yang Gang when he was on that kind of run of 4 and 5 games where he was doing really well. So yeah, I mean, these things, as you say, we are just we are totally behind these players, but you know, sometimes you need to look and say, you know, this is the truth here. You know, we don't see these guys in training every single day, or you know, you would be wondering why they're not making more of an impact, why they're not getting more minutes on the park. So you've got to kind of use that as a wee kind of you know, a kind of example of why, as I say, if Martin and Neill thought that Balakishwa could have come on and made an impact on that game today, I'm quite sure he would have had him on the bench, but he didn't. So that kind of tells you.
That's it, mate. Exactly. Listen, we'll draw a line under the game because let's face it, we never had many chances. We're not going to be going on and covering all.
The highlights package will just be about a minute and a half, I would think.
Yeah, that's it. We'd have come on and went, yeah, we had one chance, put it off target. Thanks very much for following us. Have a good night. Yeah, that's us, guys.
Let's see who we get in the draw.
Aye, that's it. Hopefully we get Dunfermline, get a wee return for Neill winning. That would be lovely.
Really?
Let's look at the penalties, right? They won the toss to get the game played in front of their fans, to get the penalties played in front of their fans. They won the toss to take first penalty. Mm-hmm. And up steps their Hall of Famer, their captain fantastic, captain disappointed, the serial loser.
Can I just take you back a wee bit? Sorry. Can I just take you back? So they won the toss to choose what end the penalties were at.
Yes.
So why did they get the choice of who got to take first penalty as well?
Because they tossed the coin twice.
Ah, right, okay.
So he basically says, right, if it's heads...
They basically lost two toy tosses as well.
Yeah, 50-50s and we fucking lost them. It summed up the Celtic game, to be honest, didn't it? That's kind of how it was, mate. So,
but hey, yeah, and we're still in the draw.
We're still in it, right? There'll be none of them at Hampden. That's for sure. No. So listen, up step captain, fantastic, and listen, like you said, Sinisalo was giving it all his mind games. He was jumping about on that line, making himself big. Tav tries to go down the middle and absolutely balloons it off the crossbar. Fantastic if you're playing crossbar challenge. It was a great shot off the crossbar, but yeah, captain disappointed once again. Put the ball straight into her court. Absolutely buzzing at that point. I thought, right, here we go. I did think that we would have missed a penalty, if that makes sense. I thought that, listen, Butland's a good keeper. Let's not beat about the bush. He's he is a good keeper. Michael's put I think there was a third coin toss because one of them stuck in the grass. It started picking up with that. So we couldn't even win that one as well.
Was it glue on it or something like that? Probably.
Aye, maybe that's what it was. Absolute class. I mean, so yeah. Listen, Tav's penalty was very, very poor. We've seen him bury so many penalties over the years. But yeah, listen.
Yeah. Listen, you'll take that every single day of the week. You know, he's normally deadly, as you say, from his penalties. He doesn't tend to miss that many, as far as I'm aware. You know, maybe there's Rangers fans out there that will tell me different, but you know, it is such a shot in the arm, you know, for the captain to step up, as you say, miss that first one, and that immediately gives us that wee tiny advantage to begin with. And you're thinking, all right, okay, that's, you know, brilliant. That moves it slightly more. Were you surprised when Ox came up to take the first one?
No. He's one of the most experienced in there, mate, and I think he showed that. Even when he was walking up, the commentator said, here he comes, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, Champions League winner. A guy who's been there. He's done it all. He's played in the big London derby. He's played in a Turkish derby. He's played in them all, mate. He's been there. He's shown that he's got a bit of balls about him. I don't think he had the best game, but I thought stepping up to take the first penalty showed that he's got that wee bit about
leadership. That's the word I used when I saw him stepping up. Was kind of, you know, as you say, you know, he's not long on the pitch. It's pressure situation after seeing, you know, Tavernier miss his, but you know that's what we kind of needed on the day, was somebody with that level of experience, leadership, put the ball down, and you know, just bang straight in the back of the net.
Yeah, listen, fantastic penalty. Up stepped in, was it Bajrami for them? I thought Sinisalo could have done better. He kind of dives over it, doesn't he? He's dived on it. He's done that wee bit, and he's just
as much as I need to give him, you know, the way he was nabbing at them all as they're kind of stepping down, you know, come on, bring on, you know, this, that, and the next thing. He's bouncing along the line. I thought he didn't quite get himself set just as they were. So he's not getting. I played in goals for a while, not at any kind of level right enough. And when you're facing a penalty, the one thing you want to do is you get yourself set, because you're looking for the kind of push off to either side. If you know one's going to go to the corner or whatever, right? I'm sure there'll be plenty of keepers on the chat and stuff like that as well. He's kind of bouncing about. So when the ball is struck, he goes the right way, just underneath him that wee bit. So I don't know whether if he'd maybe had himself set that bit better, whether he would have got down that wee bit quicker to stop it going underneath him. But it was a well-struck penalty. But he guessed right, which was good. I thought, you know, given the fact that Butland didn't get near any of the ones into him, you know, Sinisalo got to 2 out of the ones that he faced.
Exactly, mate. And listen, stepping up second for us, Austin Trusty. That was the one for me, mate. I was like, that Trusty, what's he doing? I was like, all right, here we go. But listen, great penalty.
Great penalty.
Penalties like getting taken for defenders. Sergio Ramos was always one of them that used to step up there and just butter it straight into the back of the net. But Trusty was quite composed. He was quite decent. Just played into the back of the net. So, listen, fantastic for there. Upset then Najiri. I liked Sinisalo at that point. That's when he was giving it the shit housery, going, right, put it in there, pal, put it in there, pal, let's go. And then dives out and listen, see if he lifts his hand and he flicks that, he saves that shot. I think his hand's just that wee bit too flat. If he's got a stronger hand, and I think that will come with experience.
But again, he dives the right way.
Yeah, he did, mate, and that's it. And then up stepped Rio Hatate. I thought Rio was going to go the same way, as did Jack Butland, because he dived to the right, but Rio places it on the left-hand side, and again turns to the Rangers fans and gives it, and what? Give me it. What have you got?
and then turns round and walks back with the big puffy cheeks again, going.
Yeah, exactly, mate. And that was it. At that point, I thought, here we go, shoot it in now. Gassama stepped up and walking up, mate. I said to the boys who are sitting watching it, he looked nervous. He looked like he shit the bed already. And I say he's going to do the exact same here. He's going to balloon that right over the top of the bar, and his was even better than Tav's. Rosed leans back right into the shot and just puts their foot straight through it. Absolutely brilliant. And then up steps Big Tam and does the only thing that I feel like he done in the full game, and scored a penalty with relative confidence. So
again, you know, an absolute textbook penalty, because it's right into the corner. You know, even if Butland goes the right way, you know, it's as good a kind of an angle in towards the post as you could probably you could want. You know, Butland obviously goes the wrong way. Kvanchara, but he's a good amount of power in it, and then of course starts the starts the wee dance in front of the opposition fans.
Yeah.
As if, never in doubt.
Aye, exactly. You can tell
everybody watching it.
I know, that's it, mate. Exactly. And listen, there's a lot of people in the chat there as well, and they're saying like they prefer that to a 3-0, 4-0 victory because they're absolutely bitterly disappointed. I think I would take the 3-0 or 4-0. To be perfectly honest with you,
I'm sure my doctor would recommend that it didn't pan out like today. As I say, I want to know how 74-year-old Martin, how his blood pressure doesn't, go through the roof every single game when he's at the side of the park. I know on occasions he can look angry, can Martin, but he never ever seems to get as kind of stressed out as I'm sure, everybody sitting watching that game at home. If you were there, it might have been a bit different, obviously because of the atmosphere. But I just wonder how at 74, fit as a fiddle, Big Dom. Absolutely, he looks better in a tracksuit than I do. And I'm 16 years younger than him, so this is the thing. He just kind of looks as if, as I say, he's invested in the game, but he just never lets the kind of stress come out, and you'll say, oh, Martin's worried about this, that, and the next thing. It is just, amazing what the guy's done this season.
Oh, 100%, mate. Listen, it's a beautiful Sunday. We are through to the semi-finals. And like Stevie said earlier, we're going to face... Who are we getting? Dunfermline?
Dunfermline, Falkirk, or either St Mirren or Partick Thistle, who play later on tonight, I'm sure it is.
You've got to look at that and think that there's a very, very good chance that that's one that will get over the line. The last thing I want to touch on here, Stevie, is the little scenes at the end. Now, Catalan brings it in here. The scenes at the end of the game were not needed. I totally agree with you. I think that it's all fine and well jumping on the park and celebrating and doing whatever you do, but getting involved in stramashes and running towards the opposition fans and stuff, that's not needed. It really isn't. Martin Neill commented near the end, apparently had to get his players and his team off, his players and his backroom staff off the park quite quickly as scenes turned. That being said, I think that now TalkSport and BBC are blaming the Celtic fans now and saying that we should be banned from the tournament and that basically it's all our fault. What's your thoughts on it, Stevie? Originally for the getting onto the park and celebrating like that.
Well, unfortunately, this is what will, regardless of it talking about the game, despite how poor the game was, they should spend their time talking about the game. There will be very little mentioned. It will all be on those scenes after the last penalty. And that is disappointing because in the run-up to the game, you think all the other podcasts that we've watched, all the news stories, they've all been focusing on the fact that the Celtic fans now have the whole of the Broomloan stand for this game, how that was going to manifest itself in terms of a better overall atmosphere and, a spectacle for those watching on the telly around the world.
Yeah.
What's going to take up all their focus is going to be those scenes after the game. So yes, I have to say from what I saw, I'm not blaming people. Okay, this is not a blame game. People ran onto the park after they wanted selfies with the players. Okay. No, you don't do that after the game. Time and a place to do that. Obviously, the home fans, being more of them, they took umbrage at the fact that we're on the pitch, or the fans were on the pitch, and of course you start to see mostly younger fans, have to say, and again, I'm not blaming anybody, but a certain contingent come onto the park.
Yeah.
You should know, right? The rules of the game are quite clear. you do not come onto the park at any times. Now, we've had guys running onto the park at Celtic Park to get hugs with players and this, that, and the next thing.
We can't even stop the fucking players for running into the stands, so where are we going to stop?
Yeah, exactly. And as I say, it's just a case of, what the rules are about coming onto the park. Everybody's celebrating. I'm not taking anything away from that.
Yeah.
That's fine. But celebrate in the stand. Sing the songs because we've won. You've disappointed your biggest rivals because, that's them potentially looking at a trophyless season now. Still a lot to play, so, don't think me on that. But, it's a kind of a dagger blow to what they would have thought would be their best chance of winning. You love to do it at their ground, okay? Yeah. But again, you've got to stick to the rules. You do not come over that barrier to get onto the trackside or onto the pitch. We've seen how these things have panned out in the past in Scottish football. And again, so I can see that there will be repercussions from the authorities. And as I say, I'm not blaming one side or the other here. I'm quite sure that either the SPFL or whoever's in charge of this cup competition, they will decide what the punishments will be, and there will be punishments, whether that's monetary or whatever. But really, as I say, you're now looking and saying, yeah, that's my point there, Michael, that I was going to say. See that big allocation now of away fans. You can forget that. It's not going to be between the two clubs to sort that out. That is going to be a case of, if it's going to be a Glasgow derby between Celtic and Rangers, it's going to be home support only, or it's going to be behind closed doors, or it's going to be something. So, yes, emotional game, yes, but again, you've got to know what the rules are. Yes, and again, you were not talking about one side or the other. There's going to be a universal punishment here for both clubs. How easily the fans got onto the pitch in the first place from both sides. They were both on the pitch, so they're both equally to blame. But I think there's going to be from the authorities, there's going to be some punishment here, and I don't think you're ever going to see that Broomloan stand filled with green and white again, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to come in to make, mate, and that's the upsetting part of it, is the fact that we had our massive support there, and I think that helped the team.
Absolutely.
It really, really did. And not having that, I think, going forward is going to be a little bit disappointing. But I just wanted to touch on it, see what everyone's thoughts were. The Rangers fans and stuff running on at the end as well, it looked a bit like a shit Marvel film with all the wee blue gimp masks and stuff on. At least the Celtic fans had the audacity to go on there with their faces showing, and like you said, they were only going on for selfies. So when it comes to the investigation and stuff, we'll put a wee bit in there and we'll back the boys up and say that we're just going out there for some selfies with the players. Yeah. That's it. But yeah, listen, we've hit almost 230 of you in the chat, 240 there, whatever. Thank you so much for all your support on here, guys. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, please hit the subscribe button. It costs you the same amount as a Celtic transfer for this season. Absolutely nothing.
Just before we go, Paddy, is there some special occasion other than us reaching the semi-final? Is there a special occasion for Celtic World Order today that you can tell the viewers about? Oh
yes, sorry, I forgot to bring that up. Listen, guys, Celtic World Order are 2 years old today. 2 years old. Absolutely.
Happy birthday to us.
Exactly. Everybody get in the chat. Sing to us, man. Listen, guys, if Steve-O was here as well, Steve-O would jump right on and he would be telling you thank you so much for all the support. We really, really do appreciate it. Me and Steve-O kind of started out doing this just for our love of Celtic, just to come on and basically talk shit to you guys and give our opinions on what we thought was happening in the games and things like that. Never in our wildest dreams did we think that it would get to this stage, guys, that we would have so many of you guys returning to listen to us come on here and basically talk about Celtic, because I'll be completely honest with you, I'd never even watched a podcast until Steve-O had asked me to come on, and then I was like, what do I do, mate? He says, listen, just follow me, I'll give you the kind of heads up, I'll be the one asking the questions, and you go 2 years down the line, and here I am being that guy doing that here with Stephen as well, and it's just madness, guys. Honestly, I I still can't get it into my head. And the amount of opportunities that I've had through this as well, the amount of invites to meet ex-players and things like that. You look at this wall behind me, guys, all of these signed pictures. That's all through this podcast. It's all through you guys for giving us that support. On that as well, we do have an event coming up at St Augustine's Parish in Coatbridge. It's with Murdo MacLeod, and it's £15 a ticket, guys. I'll stick it up on the screen there. If you go to the St Augustine's Parish website, you'll find the tickets on there. If not, get a screenshot of this, guys, and the QR code will take you straight to buy tickets. It's going to be a fantastic event. Murdo, if you've ever met Murdo before, is an absolute icon of the game. He's such a nice man. He's so down to earth. He's so humble. And it wasn't until I was actually looking back on his career and stuff that you realise how good a player he actually was. So I'm really looking forward to this. I'm buzzing for Friday. It's this Friday, the 13th of March, at St Augustine's Parish Hall. There are still about, I think, 60 odd tickets left, guys. Get yourself involved. And as always, listen, thank you so much. And hail, hail. Do you want to add anything, Stevie?
No, listen, just again, happy birthday. And we can thank the club for giving us that big present earlier on today. And we'll be back on, I'm sure, at some point later on in the week to talk about who we get in the next round of the draw.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, thank you so much again, guys. And as always, hail, hail.